Hit the lights!
You've discovered the Halfwatt podcast. We want to educate and entertain by tapping into the most trusted source of new technology, the ones installing and innovating it. You, the tradespeople that build from the ground up. Join us as we talk with industry leaders, veteran contractors, and even some young blood.
Welcome aboard. Welcome aboard. Today, I want to welcome Anna Rigsby.
Hello. How's it going?
So Anna represents JATC. So tell me what JATC is with 669, and let's tell my listeners about that.
Alrighty. So I work for Local 669, JATC, Fire Sprinklers.
Okay.
JATC stands for Joint Apprenticeship Training Committee.
Awesome.
So I kind of work for I do. I work for the educational side for the local.
Awesome.
So yeah.
You're a perfect person for this interview. Perfect. Because you're right up our alley. And it turns out that just prior to the interview starting, we know a lot of people in the industry together.
Yep.
Which
small world.
It is a really small world. So, and I met most of those guys. So Stephen Purdy, Ryan O'Malley, Ryan's brother, when I worked at Western.
Nice. Yep.
And,
great guys. I have nothing but good things to say about them. Some of my biggest supporters and advocates, and it's a good group of brothers.
Okay. So now tell my listeners, because I don't get too many sprinkler folks here. Okay. And sprinklers are a huge concern of mine, and not because I've worked on them and I'm familiar with them, but they put fires out versus just telling you that they're there.
Mm-hmm.
So for my listeners who are interested in something that is more mechanical than electronic, why did you get into sprinklers? What led you that direction?
So I'll be completely honest. I was thrown into sprinklers.
Okay.
And that's kind of why I have chosen the path in my career that I have, because without fire sprinklers, I wouldn't have anything I have today. So thrown into it. I was 23 years old, working at Plaid Pantry, going nowhere fast. I think I made like $950 at the time. Had just gotten out of the military.
What'd you do in the military?
I was a 21 Charlie. I built bridges.
Okay.
Engineer
Yep. In the Army?
Yep.
Okay.
Stationed in Fort Polk, Louisiana.
Okay. Whoa.
Yeah.
We had a lot in common. Okay. Hold on. Louisiana. Keep going.
And then got back, didn't really have a plan. Again, just going nowhere fast.
Mm-hmm.
New college wasn't anything I ever wanted to venture into. And so working one day, and I get a phone call from a girl I went to high school with, and her uncle owned Crown Fire. And he he was.
I know those guys.
He was.
I know when they were into business. Yeah.
He was looking for a female or minority. We'll just keep it honest, because these projects, there's PLAs, there's project labor.
Wait a minute, you're a female minority? What kind? What? Okay.
And so
so he needed you.
He needed someone.
He needed somebody.
He needed somebody, and his niece knew me from high school.
Perfect.
Knew that I was a hard worker. I'd been in the military.
Mm-hmm.
Getting dirty wasn't anything I was scared of, and so she called me up. And so I went into this interview, to be completely honest, thinking I was going for lawn irrigation sprinklers.
Right, because you wouldn't know any difference if you've
never heard of them.
Exposed to it. Yeah.
Never heard of them, right? Never. The trades weren't pushed when I was in high school. Again, why?
Which is ridiculous, isn't it?
Which is why I'm here.
Which is why you're here.
Which is why
That's
I'm here.
That's a beautiful thing.
And so the recruiters were in the hallways. I had the Navy, the Army, the Marines. I had everybody in there. You never talked about trades. It was almost kind of looked down upon if you were a blue collar worker back then. Right. And as we see that pendulum shifting and changing now we're in that crunch where the college was pushed for so long, and now we don't have any trades workers. Everyone's retiring, and we don't have enough to fill in the ranks. Right. Hence the recruiting and outreach coordinator position.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
So I went in for my interview. The guy was real gruff. I mean, he was real gruff.
Well, he was real gruff anyway.
Yes.
I mean, besides on you, he was real gruff anyway.
He was a gruff individual. And, he's like, well, you want to do it or what? And I'm like, what do you mean? And then so I'm reading through this whole packet, and it's an apprenticeship, and it's got $10,000, and it's got schoolwork, and I'm just overwhelmed. Yeah. Extremely overwhelmed. Right. But I'll be honest. I said, well, what are you starting at? Because he was very blunt. So I figured I could be as well. I said, well, where are you starting me at? And he said, $1,450. And he didn't have to say anything else. In my mind, I thought, that's a $5, $6 raise. I'm going to take it. I'll do the schoolwork until I can't do it anymore. And then I'll figure it out when that time comes. That's just where I was in life, to be honest with you.
No. Your honesty is refreshing.
And so I get into the apprenticeship, start doing the first couple books. Not too hard, nothing crazy. They start off with safety, introduction to tools, intros, right? And so get into the math book. And at this time, I had met my now current wife. And I told her, I can't do this math book. I just don't get it, And so I was starting to look for other jobs. I hadn't been suspended, hadn't, had all the repercussions of not completing my apprenticeship yet. And she just kind of slapped me into reality. You have an opportunity for a really good career. You could go really far with this, and you're going to throw in the towel over a math book.
She's a good woman. She
Absolutely.
She did you really well.
Absolutely.
Because you need that support.
You do.
Go, hey, you can do this.
Where you have that you have that own insecurity, and the person sees what you don't see in yourself.
Right.
And we got through the math book together. She helped me with many a lesson. Journeyed out in 2018, and in 2020 they opened a new instructor position.
Okay.
So I threw my name in the hat for that, and I was an instructor all the way up until May.
Okay.
I can't hold two roles as for the JETC. I can't be an instructor and a full-time recruiter, which is fine. I still get to be very involved with the apprentices. But Stephen Purdy was actually kind of what helped foster my career path. Well, when I was a class 3 or 4 apprentice, they have the Oregon Tradeswomen Career Fair at IBEW. It's huge. Everybody knows about it. It's about KGW, all of that. Well, he asked me, do you want to come volunteer at the career fair, the table? I said, sure, why not? He had just, helped me get through, a suspension for the math book, and he'd been there. So I wanted to, give back. Right. And that's where it all started. I got to go to one career fair. I got to see the difference and make those connections and that networking and the camaraderie from everybody. And that's what I wanted. Okay. I wanted to do that. And so when I got the instructor position, I was able to kind of venture out a little bit because I did have an instructor position. So I started venturing out with pre-apprenticeship programs. And the one that I worked with really close in the beginning with was Oregon Tradeswomen. Okay. So what I would do is I would have them come in. They go visit different apprenticeships. They go visit 290. They go visit the carpenters.
So let me clarify. UA 290 is for pipe fitters.
Yep.
Pipe fitters and I think steam fitters.
Steam fitters, plumbers, welders, and HVACs.
Okay. So for those of you who are listening, because I'm in AFSCME, I'm represented by AFSCME. So in the unions, right, there's IBW for electrical, there's 669 for sprinklers, which is a separate group from pipe fitters and plumbers and all that stuff. Yep. And then there's UA 290, who is a monster union that represents almost all the mechanics that you see, mechanical trades, other than
fire sprinklers. Yeah. Fire sprinklers. We're all under the same umbrella. We all are part of the UA, the United Association. We're just different local numbers. Locals. Yep. Awesome. We're all under the same umbrella. We pay the same dues to the UA, but just different local unions. We're a national union. Local 669 is one of the only national unions out there. We have jurisdiction in 48 states, but minus Hawaii and Florida. But other than that, we're all under the same brotherhood. They just do a little bit different than we do.
Okay, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're fine.
You were going. So,
no, you're fine.
So you were talking to the UA 290 folks, and then
and so the Oregon Tradeswomen gets to go and visit all these different entities: plumbers, plumbers, carpenters, electricians, elevators, all of the trades. So what I did is I created a workshop. And they come in for 4 or 5 hours. I do a mini PowerPoint presentation because I hate death by PowerPoint. And then I designed this little low risk, essentially a mini manifold. It's a piece of 1.5-inch pipe with a thread by groove pipe. Those are threads on one end and a groove on the other. They put a Vic cap, so they learn how to install a Vic with a cap and 11/16 and a ratchet, old school. No impacts, anything like that. No. The old school, you got to learn how to do it the hard way before you can learn to do it the easy way. Nice. And it's got a 1.5 inch by 1 saddle on it with a 1.5 by 190. They install a sprig up and they install a pendant. And again, no risk to it. Somebody off the street can do this kind of thing. And they've already been in a pre-apprenticeship program. So they have their OSHA 10. They have the basic safety skills. And so fostering that, I've been able to recruit quite a few women.
No kidding.
Quite a few. So my very first.
So let me see. So they're doing this, and then they realize that this isn't.
They can do this.
That they can do this.
They can do this,
which is empowering.
Yes.
And then they're going, well, I don't need to do whatever it is they're doing. I can move forward in a trade.
Yeah.
Make some scratch and get a hell of a good living out of it.
Yeah. And
nice.
And it's really amazing because my very first individual that I ever recruited from Oregon Tradeswomen, her name's Jennifer Cross. She went to work for McKinstry, and at that time I was working for Viking. No, I was working for Delta. I'm sorry. I was working for Delta. and doing the outreach thing, doing the instructor thing. And then I went to McKenna Street.
Okay.
And so I got to work hand in hand with somebody who I saw day one, week one off the street.
That's awesome.
And to look at her and watch her throw sprinkler pipe in the air and prep everything and watch every foreman say, well, I want Jen. And then me being a foreman being like, I'm the one who got Jen. Why can't I have Jen? You know? And
everybody's fighting for her.
Yeah, and we made history. It was really cool. We were probably, what I've been told, is the first ever all-female Local 669 sprinkler crew.
No kidding.
We did the Salem Public Works building.
No kidding.
Yep.
I did not know that.
Yes. And so we were in the newsletter. It was really empowering, though, just to be able to see her. She's a class 7, I believe, now.
Mm-hmm.
She's almost done with her lesson. She's going to journey out here in a year and a half. And to see her from off the street, never turned a wrench, to see her running the Tremble machine up at OHSU, doing layout and bangers, running guys on crews, even though she's an apprentice. Yeah. It's empowering.
That is and that is a big, that particular site, because we and I were just talking about it. So we would have probably crossed paths if I had known what the hell was going on. Because I work on the fire alarm system, and that's my domain up there. And every once in a while, we'll cross into the sprinkler system. Like we were just talking about an issue that came up in one of the parking structures. So that is a huge building. That's a huge building. And
it's
I mean,
it's campus.
Gargantuan. Oh, yeah, the campus is crazy. And my buddy Garrett, who handles the sprinklers for the OHSU side, and he contracts with mostly basic. So we've got, 2 669 guys up there. One that is a journeyman and his apprentice, who they just do stellar work. I mean, stellar work. So, we're constantly crossing paths with IBW electricians, from Dyna Electric and Cherry City and Cochrane, plus all of the different trades. McKenna Street has, the sprinkler installation now for these 2 buildings. We have Viking up there doing work on certain places. Every once in a while, we'll have another party come up and do some work too. So it's nice to see all these, like everybody kind of knows like what these projects are about, and they're big.
They're huge,
massive.
The one that's going on right now, when we went through orientation, I think that is the largest medical addition in history of Oregon. I
would say you're probably, because when I took a tour of it and I got on the floor where the chillers are, one of the guys stopped and said, this is going to be like a 2 million man hour room right here. The chiller room is gargantuan. It must have 25-foot high ceilings. The generators are going right down the hall, and the space, I haven't seen a space like that in years. Yeah. It's just massive. Yeah. So yeah, you're talking a big project, plus all the sky bridges that are tying.
I was getting ready to say everything, because if, from my understanding, the way I understood the plans and everything is that everything ties into it all. You will be able to get from one building from one sky bridge to the other sky bridge.
They're just putting the one in. They're going to go in so we've already got one sky bridge that goes from the VA to the South Hospital, which has been there for years. And Dornbecker cuts in on 2 different levels, on 8 and 9, and that's there. So now on the 9th floor, they're going to cut in with IPA. And they're going to go into KPV, which is the building to the east, that big monster building that kind of hangs over the edge. That one with the tram on it. They're also cutting into that. And a matter of fact, I was in the fire panel room looking out the window, and they're like 5 feet from the building. So they're about, all the iron workers have got it like just to that point. It's fascinating to watch a building go up from a hole in the ground to this.
Yes.
It's just like,
from everything, just the building itself and how they jump the cranes. That's incredible. Jen actually had a really cool video on her Instagram of like it's slow-mo jumping, and it was just incredible how they do it and how safe Skanska is.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I have nothing but good things to say about Skanska. Top-notch people, top-notch safety standard out there.
Well, and now that they're one of the larger firms up there, because when I was working there before, I've worked there twice. And when I was working there before, it was all Hoffman and then Hoffman Anderson combined. It was Hoffman and Anderson, and they combined. Hoffman Anderson. And so now when I came back, they have a very small presence there. I don't know what happened. Something probably went sideways, and now it's almost all Skanska that's doing the work up there. So it is a different group. And I've worked with most of these construction firms either at the airport, because I was managing a company before this, and so I know a lot of these firms, and I can see some differences in how the work is done. And they're building another building, by the way. That's going up in front of Dornbecker.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're looking at how they're going to add this other piece. It's not going to be as big, but
they're still trying to play Tetris with it.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy because you don't realize how much is in this one little valley.
Well, just the hill itself.
Oh my God.
How much money, how much time, how much jobs, how many.
So you know the history of that? The history of that was it was sold sight unseen as a train station, as a train depot.
The hill?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the people who bought it without seeing it. And when they showed up and they said, well, where's this at? And they said, there. And they went, well, we're not going to get a train up there. And so they, in all seriousness, had to donate it or lease it or something like that to make a hospital, to make University of Oregon Hospital up there. So it began its roots because they couldn't really use it. Yeah. So they started off with the TB hospital and another couple of small, I'm getting it out of order, but there's a couple older buildings. Those were the first ones. And they became eventually, the county hospital where everybody would come to. And then they started adding to it. So every once in a while, we'd have to do work and go underneath the street. Those easements are still owned by the original train company. You have to pay. So we have tunnels that connect everything now that they've already paid the easements for. But if you want to go, like I was just going to go to one of our buildings. It's all changed now because they've worked it all out. We were just going to go underneath the street and it was going to cost us like $30,000 to pay just to pay the rights to do that because it was still owned by the train company.
Oh, wow.
So we were like, okay, now it's all changed,
Yeah.
I wound up running my wires that I needed all the way through the VA and over because I went 10,000 feet around the whole thing to not have to pay those fees originally. It was
that's crazy. I never knew that.
Yeah.
I never knew that. That's crazy.
I love working there. It has been a dream come true to go back and to kind of go back in the fold and be because I'm not in a management position. I'm just there back as a worker bee. And it is just a nice, it's like a family. So,
yeah. No, I love it. Did you ever work with Justin Jantz up there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I like Justin.
He moved to Prineville.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Do you know Nick Valentine?
I don't know Nick.
Okay.
No, but Tony Bierke worked up there too.
Okay.
I know him and one of the fire marshals in Gresham, Dustin, I knew him and Aaliyah, his girl at the time. So, it's the people who've come in and out of that position. I've, known Kent Anderson when he was there. So, it's a
small world. It's such a small world.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, let's go back a little bit. So you're from Portland and you
actually grew up in Forest Grove.
Okay. So totally local person.
Yep. Totally local.
You joined the Army and went to Fort Polk, Louisiana.
Yeah.
Tell me about Fort Polk and Louisiana.
Oh, I was young and dumb.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get out of town. 18 and I knew I didn't want to live at home forever. And so I literally went into the recruiter's office and was like, what do you got that leaves next? And they said, I'm not kidding. They saw a sucker coming.
Well,
and so, I think I shipped out, 12 days after I went into the recruiter's office.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a 21
quick.
Charlie. On my ASVAB, I had enough ASVAB scores for it. And
so what is a 21 Charlie? Because in the Navy, has got a different system.
So I believe nowadays it's called a 12 Charlie.
Okay.
When I went in, it was a 21 Charlie, which is a bridge crew member.
Okay.
We did our basic training and our AIT with the 12 Bravos, which is a combat engineer.
Okay.
Back then, this was 2008. Women were not allowed to be in combat. That has now changed.
Okay.
So it was kind of cool back then because we literally did our AIT when the combat engineers went and did their, C4 explosive training.
Mm-hmm.
We got to go with them.
Nice.
It was super cool. So I built bridges in the Army, dry support, land support. I got out. I had a really hard time in the Army. I was young and
Why?
I was dumb because I was young and dumb. And
we're all young and dumb.
I didn't understand that they literally own you.
Okay.
And I like to drink and everyone else was old enough and I was only 18 and they still have rules.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of Article 15s there, but it was a valuable lesson.
By the way, you're sitting with somebody who also drank in the military and I spent 9 years in the Navy. So I've had my experiences as well. You're not alone.
Yeah.
You're not alone. I left as an E6 in one piece, barely. So
yeah, I left as what I came in as, but I had all my parts and pieces.
So you had a lot of Velcro on on your stripes.
Yeah.
Every time I get one, I take one back off.
Yep. So, but it was a good learning lesson. And I think, blessing is in disguise. I don't know if I would have completed my apprenticeship if I would have gone in at 18 because I was so young and dumb, right? And didn't see the value in a career and not just a job. So
would you say that the Army gave you at least it did teach you how to focus and stay on target?
Yeah.
I would say
it taught me a lot of valuable lessons. Discipline. Now looking back on it, I see all of them, but I was just so young and the frontal lobe wasn't working like it should be at a young age.
Yeah.
It taught me a lot. It really did. I wouldn't go back and change it because that's a part of me and all the battle buddies and all the friendships over the years and the camaraderie. Like I wouldn't change it for anything. I just, I wish I would have just been a little bit more mature.
I wish the same thing. I wish I had known how shitty alcohol was when I started in the military. I didn't realize what a problem I had with it. And then of course you get into a place and, they take alcoholism to levels that I can't even dream of. And, not understanding me screwed me over in that aspect. But at the same time, when I'm out to sea, I'm not drinking. Yeah. So guess what you're doing? Now you're focused on your job. It turns out that I was really good and I could do all this stuff. But as soon as I hit port, complete jackass.
Well, the problem was I was on land.
You're on
and
land.
There's nothing to do in Fort Polk, Louisiana.
Did you deploy or were
No, I didn't. There's 5 back at the time there was 5 bridge crew members and I wasn't in the rotation. I did 3 years and I got out.
Okay.
3 years and like 10 days, I think, and got out. And so I didn't deploy or anything like that, but in Fort Polk, Louisiana, there's strip clubs, drive-through daiquiris, and tattoo parlors. And that's it. And when you're young and you're dumb, that's where you go, And so I remember, funny story, we go to Alexandria into town, right? And my friend says, hey, pull in there. And it's a daiquiri stand, drive-through daiquiri stand. And I'm 18. And I'm driving through the drive-through and everybody orders their drink. And I just think, because I'm young and I'm from Oregon, and I would never imagine. I just think it's like a smoothie shop, right? I realize that it says daiquiri, but I didn't grow up.
But no one in Oregon's ever seen these.
No.
And I'm, by the way, I live in Louisiana and have family there. So I get it. And they don't, but people here don't realize that they actually do have drive-through places where you get alcohol.
And so I go through, we order our drinks, we get one. I ordered a Funky Monkey, I think.
How's that working out for you?
And so I take a sip of it and I literally like stop and look over in the car and I'm like, there's alcohol in this. And the girl's like, it's a daiquiri. And I'm like, I'm 18 and I'm driving in the car and I just went through, what are we doing here?
What country is this?
And so, it was just, my mind was completely blown. It's acceptable. That's the way I looked at it. But, grown up, I'm 34 now. I have 2.5 years, no alcohol.
Congratulations.
Best decision I ever made.
Congratulations.
Best decision I ever made. So alcohol definitely never has done me any favors.
It does not. And once you put one foot in front of the other and don't use it anymore, you're like, okay, it gets easier. The first 30 days is hard as hell. Last time I went drinking, I didn't drink for 18 years. I went out for, 3 or 4 years. I can't even tell you. It's hazy. And when I went to quit, it took me 11 months. It took me 11 damn months. And I mean to tell you, there's fingernail marks in parking lots in this town from me trying to struggle with that. Yeah. And I took care of a personal problem I needed and changed my life and quit within a day and a half. As soon as my personal life began to straighten out, I went, I don't need this shit. And was able to walk away from it and go right back to where I was and go, I'm done. Because when you do pick up drinking, like if you do go out again, you'll pick up right where you left off. And I mean, it only takes about, 4 hours. And you're like, oh crap, I'm right back where I was. That's how shitty it is.
So my wife, we're getting ready to have our second child, her fourth.
Nice.
And she comes to me and says, hey, before we have the baby, I was just wondering if you could just slow down a little bit. And, I kind of sat back and, growing up and I thought about it on all my drives to work. And I come home one day and I said, I think I'm just going to quit.
Good.
She's like, look, I'm not asking that of you. And I was like, you never asked me of anything. You've supported me my entire career. You've put your career on hold to raise our children. You've had 2 children. The least I can do is quit.
That's sweet.
And so
That's
mentally, I thought about it for a long time.
Yeah.
I knew. And so January 31st of 2022, I was going to drink up until my birthday, which is February 6th. But
well played.
Like you say, you start off where you go. January 31st, I probably drank way too fast. And I still remember that hangover to this day.
Wow.
And I haven't drank since then. And my goal is, as long as my children are in this world, my second one, the first one got a little bit, but she won't ever remember. As long as my children are in this world, she will live in a world that I don't drink.
That's great.
That's the goal,
That's
right?
Great.
You know, every one day at a time, but that's the goal.
Yep. And it's actually easier to do than you think.
Yeah.
Because you can just, you're making every single time that feeling comes up, and it doesn't come up for me anymore at all. Like there's a time when it did and it faded away.
Yeah.
And I go, I don't need this shit, you know? And but I actually have more fun and am funnier when I drink coffee than anything else. So if I go and drink if I had to drink a venti coffee before I come to your night, we'd be laughing our asses off. That drug, caffeine, does much more for me than alcohol ever did.
Yeah.
So it's like, but once I put one foot in front of the other and just go, I don't need this crap. I just don't need it.
Yeah.
And my current wife would not put up with it at all. Like she's just like, no, there's no reason for you to do that again.
Yeah.
There's no reason to go back there.
Yeah.
So I don't.
No, and I don't, and I'm not struggled or tempted. Oh, I don't know what the proper word is. I'm around it all the time. I go to conventions. I'm going to dinner on Monday.
Yep.
I mean, meet and greets, conferences, happy hours, all of it.
Me too.
But my children mean more to me than anything like that. And you're right. It doesn't even tempt me anymore. The first 6 months, I was crawling out of my skin.
Yes,
every time, every instructor meeting, every IT, you know what I mean? Anything that we went to, because in the trades, I mean, we drink. Yep. That's what it is. That's what you do. That's,
drink and dip.
Yeah. You know, Zen nowadays, but yeah. But yeah, you know, and at the first 6 months I was crawling out of my skin, but now it doesn't even bother me.
That's great.
I don't even mind going and getting you a drink. People laugh at me because I come back and they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, I got you a drink. And they're like, what? And I'm like, it doesn't bother me. Nope. Not even.
No, actually, soda water, I like. Soda. My newest kick is honest to God, soda water and Mio. You know those little Mios?
I love Mio.
So the sweet tea Mio and soda water makes some sort of concoction. I have no idea what it does.
Try the orange vanilla Mio.
And orange vanilla and soda water does the same thing. And I'm like, these things are baller. I gotta get more of them. God.
Yeah.
So now my wife's she does hers is like black cranberry, blackberry,
they're good.
Crazy ass flavor.
They're good.
They're awesome.
Love
so between that and coffee, that's all I need. And it took the anger out of me. And it took because I would, when I was overseas, especially in the Philippines, you know, and we're $5 you could get pretty damn wasted.
Oh, yeah.
$5. So it's all you got here in E3. You can have a hell of a lot of fun. But, that was, would wake up the next morning and not know exactly what happened, be scarred up and figure out that, you tangled with somebody you didn't know. And, it was just all kind of bat squeeze.
Yep.
And I eventually crashed a motorcycle and hurt people and got in all kinds of trouble. And you would think that once you had an experience like that, you'd never go back to it. And
you forget
and you just move right on.
Yep.
It's just insane how your body, and I'll get off this kick in a second, but there is one thing that they have proven, that there's like a feedback loop that happens in alcoholics that doesn't happen in alcoholics, that happens in normal people. So like Tyler and I and Gage went to Milwaukee for Milwaukee Tools for their pipeline event, which was like earth shattering to me. Anyway, they're like partying up, man. And they buy a bar and everybody's just enjoying themselves. And I'm standing there like you, I'm just watching everybody, and you can see the people aren't drinking. We're all kind of hanging out together. But I'm watching Tyler and Gage, and they are like responsible guys. Like they'll drink a little bit, they'll put it down. I'm like, I never could do that. I never could do that.
Pedal to the metal.
I could never walk away from a half-drank beer. You gotta be kidding. If you didn't drink your beer and walked away from it, I'd sit there and stare at it, wondering.
I'll scold you.
Yeah.
Drink that beer.
That's crazy. Yeah. Like that craziness. So that feedback loop, the same feedback loop that you would sense if you're up on a lift, you're up on a 130-foot boom lift doing work, and that fear of, my God, I'm up this high. This is crazy. That, I want to make sure I don't do anything stupid while I'm up here. that completely gets disabled in an alcoholic when they drink. Completely. And that loop is what's wrong. If they could repair the loop, then you would probably not. You would have the same. We'd be able to have the same social drinking convention like everybody else. We just
That's
don't.
crazy.
And
it makes sense.
Yeah, it totally makes sense.
It absolutely makes sense.
Someone explained it to me, and I was like, "Oh shit, okay. Well then, so if you don't do that, you won't have this problem."
Yep.
Then I'll just not do that.
Yep.
Yep.
It's simple.
God, so yeah, I have family in Louisiana. I lived in Baton Rouge for a while. I've been to Alexandria. I've never been to Fort Polk. But I'm from San Diego, so I went and joined the Navy back where I was from, and made a couple of Westbacks and spent a lot of time in. My whole stuff was electronics, and they trained me like no other. I came out of there an animal when it came to understanding concepts in electronics and theory and stuff like that. I don't think I was good at it then as I was when I got out as a civilian and started applying it. So my military time, I credit as they taught me discipline. They taught me how to troubleshoot. They taught me how to think and how to put stuff together. And then when I came out and eventually became an instructor, because I teach for IEC and JHTC as well, it was a natural fit. So you and I are on the same plans. I've even gone to a high school with Eva Seislove from IEC to talk to high school students. I'm only able to do it once so far. Same exact thing. A lot of people coming up, and you could see National Guard, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines are all right there. And even the Coast Guard is out there too, and all the colleges. And then every once in a while, you'll see a couple of trades. And here we are going, look, if you started now and got your stuff together, you would come in the electrical trade, making $18 an hour and end at 37. So, I mean, this is a pipeline for you. And in our world, it's 3 years. It's a 3-year apprenticeship, not a 5-year apprenticeship.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not, you guys are really.
There's a lot to learn in 5 years.
Your apprenticeship is tough.
Yeah.
It's not the same as it's a different world for fitters. It really is.
It's tough and not at the same time. So, because I don't want to discourage people. The curriculum is not difficult. Just, the pressures of, getting ready to journey out and then running work and all of that. The way our apprenticeship is structured, you have so much support. But yes, it is a little bit more stringent. There's more to cover.
There's a lot more to cover.
We have a lot more different systems, right? We have, and now we're venturing into VESDA systems, which works with electrical as well.
You guys are doing all the VESDA piping?
That's our jurisdiction.
Oh, nice.
Yep. Just VESDA piping is our jurisdiction.
Good.
It's a piping industry.
CPVC, it ought to be.
It should be.
Yeah.
And we fought for it.
Was it in the electrical side before?
They were doing it before, yes.
And so you were able to say, no, that's ours.
I believe so. That's
okay.
the building trades went before. I don't know specifics.
That's okay.
The politics, but
even if we're not 100% right.
Yeah, but I do know that is the UA's jurisdiction. Whether it be a fire sprinkler fitter, we're kind of arguing over that with 290 and everything, because it's CPVC fire protection piping that should be in the fire industry. So like when I was working out in Boardman for McKinstry, when I first got with them, Apollo is a contractor out there. They're part of the UA, and
Apollo Plumbing.
Yep.
Yeah, they're here, John.
They became a signatory contractor with 669 and hired a couple sprinkler fitters to run the VESDA pipe. And so when I was doing PDX 112, 110, 111, the big data centers out there, I ran into a sprinkler fitter that's all he did all day. And he made the same wage that I did. And he was running VESDA pipe, and he worked for Apollo. So yes, that is our work.
And honestly, it really does make sense. So if you don't know what CPVC is orange. It looks like PVC pipe, but it's orange, and it's orange because it's got a special.
It's flame resistant.
Flame resistant.
Yep. So whatever chemicals that they use when they forge it together, it's flame retardant.
And it's a unique product. It's not any more difficult to work with than regular PVC, but it does have, like in VESDAs, it has some specific requirements.
Yep.
So are you doing, if you have to do it in rigid, are you also doing the rigid side? Because it can also be done in rigid pipe, or is it just
in like steel?
Yeah, it can be done in EMT and rigid too.
I didn't know that, actually.
It can, but you don't see it as much.
I think
so
cost effective.
Yeah,
CPVC is so cheap compared to fittings, and then steel.
Easy to replace.
Yes.
Yeah.
And labor, right?
Yeah.
You can get, I have a friend, one of my best friends, she's in the trade. She's a class 6, Tiffany Bruder. She does a lot of Vesda work. She can knock out a whole data center and a couple galleries in a day.
Nice.
She is it's rinse and repeat. One data center to the other gallery hall. She doesn't even have to look at the print anymore.
Well, so for the listeners that aren't familiar with what a Vesda is a special smoke detector that can detect fire really before it happens. So in these data centers, what they're doing is the Vesda is so sensitive, they can tell when the wiring is getting hot on a rack of servers. And what they can do is detect it with the Vesda and re-shunt all the data away from those racks as they shut them down to figure out what the problem is. So places that, huge data centers, and I won't mention any of them by name, but it rhymes with Ace Hook, they're actually selling service space depending on where its proximity is to the Vesda units, because they can guarantee throughput. So that's what Vesda has done, and that's how the data centers are now classifying. So if you're somebody who can't afford a good data center, you might be in the corner away from the closest sensor hole. Mm-hmm. But anyway, each hole that's put in the pipe, in the way the pipe has to be put in, the aspirating device will pull the air in, sample it, and then tell you if you've got a fire. So,
and that works hand in hand with our pre-action systems, mm-hmm. because they're electric solenoids. So that Vesda system has to engage and send that electric signal before that sprinkler system will accidentally trip.
Exactly.
It has to be a 2-part component if it's a double pre-action.
If you do like a DDX
yep,
valve.
DDX, right. Double pre-action, or if it's single pre-action. But
this is why I tell fire folks to not be afraid of sprinklers, because because the new standard, if you put it in an apartment building, you go down the street and put it in an apartment building. If it's fully sprinkled, you're going to have a fire panel monitoring the sprinkler system, a pull station, and a smoke detector, and NAC devices in all the units. And that's it. It's the sprinkler system that is providing the detection for all the units. There's not smoke detectors in them.
Well, they might have them, but they're not monitored.
They're not
monitored. Yeah.
I meant to say that they'll have smoke detectors, but they won't be attached to the fire
system. Because I was going to say when we do inspections, when I go into apartments and I'm like, they're not monitored. They don't need to be. And then we just write it up. Yep.
Exactly.
Just write it up.
But the sprinkler system itself is what the system is going to detect, and that's going to call the central station. So, I've been in huge apartment complexes where that's really all they have. The huge as in like 2-3 stories and above a certain size, or if it's all inside, then they'll add a smoke detection in the corridors and stuff like that. But yeah, that is it. That's the standard. So you build a duplex somewhere new, and it's got to have all that stuff in it. The only thing that fire panel is monitoring is a sprinkler system and one pull and one smoke, and that's it.
Yep.
So if you don't shy away from understanding how a tamper gets wired and how you can't physically install them. I mean, I have in non-union shops, but how a tamper gets installed and wired, how a flow switch works. For example, how pre-action systems work, what the solenoid does, what trips it, how it works, how the pre-action system is integrated. All that stuff is huge. It's huge.
And I learned a lot. Me and Tyler were on a job, and that's how we kind of made a connection to talk about the podcast anyways, is I was getting ready to do my final, and he had, he was I believe he was the foreman, and he had a couple other people. Yeah. And, I said, we're ready for the final. And, 2 different understandings. He thought my final, and I'm trying to relay final. Well, then the fire marshal shows up, and we don't have cover switches on. We don't have... we hadn't done any pre-testing.
Sure.
And, Tyler's like, well, I'm not ready. And I'm like, bro, I've been telling you for 2 days that. But it was such a good learning experience for me. Because
you were both speaking different languages.
Yes. Yeah. Completely different language. We were on the same page, but his was in a different language and mine was the translated, And so it was super beneficial for me to, when he's like, well, do you want to come onto the show? And I said, absolutely, because this is such a learning experience. And I turned around and took it to my class, because at the time when me and Tyler worked together, I was still an instructor. And I said, listen, I want you guys to learn from my mistakes about this. When you guys journey out and you get ready to do your final, the tamper switches in the vault, no, that's not your work. But when you're calling for a final and the fire marshal comes out, you need to go look at that and make sure it's done.
Make sure
because this is where I made the mistake. You know what I mean? And it was, again, a learning lesson, right? Like just the control valve covers being on, or the trim for the strobes being on. All of those things are not in my scope of work, but we're hand in hand because they're two systems that coincide with each other. Yeah. And I never realized that until I had to do my final with Tyler.
Nice.
Because going through as an apprentice, my journeyman they took care of it behind the scenes, right? But they never had that opportunity to say, hey, look, when you journey out and you get ready to do your final, you need to make sure all of your work is done, all of your trim, all of your skirts, every escutcheon, every head guard off, everything. And then you need to walk through the building and verify all of these things. Nobody ever told me that. Yeah. I never knew. And so it was a great learning lesson, and I was able to turn around and go back to my apprentices and teach them to hopefully not, so that they don't have that same mistake, because I try to, as an instructor and as somebody who's trying to foster the next generation, please learn from my mistakes. Yep. Most people, if you were like me, you're going to make them anyways. But at least if I can plant a seed with one out of the three individuals and they maybe take heed, then we're on a good foot.
So you and I have a lot of similarities. When I stand in front of my apprentices, I say practically the same thing. I say, look, if you don't eclipse me, if you don't eclipse what I've become in 5 years, I've failed at this endeavor. I don't want you to be as good as me, or, oh gosh, Mike is this. That's bullshit. I want you should be crushing me. I'm training you to pick up the ball and run. And I've got several students who have done exactly that. Like, I'm watching them excel. One of them has started his own company. He just got his new truck, which is all diesel, and he got a crew cab and a Ford, with a 6.7 in it and the big nap hide. Everything. He's getting all dialed in, and of course all of his stuff's Milwaukee, and most of it, and he's got all of his pack out stuff in there and he's just slowly piecing this thing together. And all of us who know him, everybody he's touched, because he was an apprentice and went through the trades. He's worked for several companies. He's known by a lot of folks in the trade, are all watching him. And everybody's talking about it. Even the other guy who started his company, who I know of off the top of my head, whose hat I have right here, Halfwatt Electric, even he's like, oh man, I can't believe the truck he got. So we're all kind of going, wow, watching these guys make these steps into becoming the next big thing. Yeah. I mean, Delta, because, Delta and Basic, Viking, I mean, these companies all started off relatively small and worked their way up to huge concerns. Yeah. Huge concerns. Yeah. It's just, they don't get there without being good, and they don't get there by starting them somewhere and building themselves up. So now I'm just, it's like, it's nice to hear you say that for your students, because I want the same exact. I want you to take my job. Yes. That's what I've told them all the time. You know what I mean? I don't want you to, you know what I mean? Like, know more than me. Teach me something. Perfect. So in your field, I mean, you've been doing this a long time. So how long have you been in? I've been in since 2013. So 2013. 11 years. So 11 years. So in 11 years, you've gone from what's a sprinkler system to teaching and really fostering and going out and working with new folks to get them in. Pre-apprenticeships, high schools. I work with, you name it and I'll go there. I just did a STEM, so STEM programs. Yeah, what is that? I can't remember what the acronym is for, but STEM is in a lot of high schools. It's like the walls are talking. Yeah. I hear this voice, but there's no body attached to it. What does STEM mean, Tyler? Science, technology, engineering, and mechanical. So a lot of high schools have STEM programs, right? And so I just went to
a STEM speed networking event in Wilsonville. It was really cool. It was a bunch of educators that registered for this program, and the STEM network put it on. And educators and industry partners came, and we literally speed dated. And they came. The educators came through. So one of these, I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but she was a science teacher out of Vernonia. And she teaches students with maybe learning disabilities, dyslexia, maybe born with fetal alcohol, not necessarily on the spectrum, but just having a little bit of educational differences. She's a science teacher. And just being able to make those connections of, she's like, well, would you be willing to come out and talk to my class about fire sprinklers? And I said, absolutely. And so now I get to do that full time, working with high schools. And there's a lot of high schools out there. Merlot High School, back in May, they had a construction Olympics where they had Southridge come, Aloha come, and they competed in these little tiny projects. After everything they've learned, they built a header. They did like a obstacle course with a 4x8 sheet of plywood, trying to navigate through. It was really cool.
No kidding.
It was really cool. So the pendulum is definitely swinging.
Good.
Where you see these high schools wanting, because they know that not all of the students in that classroom are going to go to college. You can see the ones that are bored out of their mind and need to be challenged intellectually with their hands. And they're starting to try and find different avenues. Back in July, I went to the American School Counselors Association and the NABTU, National Apprenticeship Building Trades Council. They had this entire area, like 5 or 6 different trades. Let's see, masons, plumber. I mean, you name it, and they were there. And it was so refreshing to see all of the high school counselors coming and asking for curriculum, asking for people to come to their schools. How can we get more information? How can we get the information into every student's hands, or the ones that are wanting to go to the trades? Right. So that pendulum swinging is just beautiful.
So there's, there's not, I don't think there's too many, high school students listening to this podcast, but in my experience with them, and it's only been limited just because I just don't, this is not my forte at that point. When I did talk to them, you could see where a lot of them were trying to go, well, I don't know whether I should go to college or not. And I would tell them, I'm not trying to talk you out of going to college. I mean, I'm really not. But if you are going to carry a college debt at the end of this, like if you're going to go to community college, get your associates, and then move over to go get your bachelor's at, another college, I understand that. That's a pretty good pipeline to run. But if you're going to go jump into a 4-year college, stay on campus, go through college life, which we all know what that can be like, and carry a big debt load when you're done, God, you got to understand that I'm making more than most college grads, and I'm making more than most people who have a college degree. As a matter of fact, a lot of folks I know have college degrees and are not doing anything that took a college degree. Like in the years I've been teaching for 11, 12 years. So every class I have, and I usually teach 2 classes a term for 3 terms a year. Every time I start the class off by going, who are you? Why are you here? Where'd you come from? What'd you do before this? A lot of times they're just, I worked in, retail, or I was a cook or whatever like that. I've had airline pilots. I've had multiple people with degrees, bachelor's degrees, master's degrees. People who are going, yeah, I just don't like what I was doing. Like, I just don't want to fly a desk. I don't want to do this work. I want to do something with my hands. And I think that there's on a kinesthetic level to go do something that you go back and look at and go, I did that. That's me. That's like, I installed that thing,
Building America.
Building it. Yeah. And getting paid a decent wage for it. And in our case, where our jobs are protected, we've got, collective bargaining arrangements and things like that. It makes a huge difference.
And then here's my caveat where I push people and I say, that's fine if you want to go to college.
There's nothing wrong with it.
That's fine. But let the union pay for it. Because when you're done with my apprenticeship, my apprenticeship, because we go through Washington Community College back in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Yep.
When it's all said and done, the transcript that I have from doing the 19 course curriculum required by me is the equivalent of 45 college credits.
Nice.
So what I need to do now, and I've already talked to the college, and anybody can do this. They offer it. They send it to you right before you journey out.
Mm-hmm.
Take 3 more classes, pay out of pocket, which is about $1,500 for 3 more college credits or whatever the equivalency is. And now you'll get to double dip. You have your journeyman's card. And now you have an associate's in applied science.
There you go.
And that's what I tell people. That's fine if you want to call it college, but why don't you have the union pay for it?
Yeah, that's even better. I like that even better.
Zero
I'll
debt.
do that next time I talk to them.
Zero debt.
Yeah.
Absolutely zero debt.
Yeah.
And then you have a journeyman's card if that's not what you wanted. If you go take your bachelor's degree in underwater basket weaving and it doesn't work out for you somewhere else, then you have your journeyman's card to fall back on.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no risk. I mean, there's no harm in it.
No, especially if you're young. And when I run into folks that are like, teens, I'm like, you have no idea how shitty this life is going to be if you don't have a career and you don't figure out something. I'm not saying to find a career now and that this is it, but at least start digging into this. And we've interviewed on this podcast and met folks who, especially back east, there's a couple of groups we've met where people were housing apprentices, like literally housing them and teaching them, electrical apprenticeship stuff. Putting them up in a place, getting them straightened out, getting them a trade. And we also get, credits, our students get credit for that too. So it's like, I think it's like you said, I just don't think a lot of folks know that this is available to them. Yep. And so your outreach is helping a lot of people, especially with your energy. Because I can see just in the conversation we've had that I would totally, if you came up to talk to me and I was a student, you would have me captured. I would be enraptured by the energy that you're throwing forth. And you were captivating in the way that you talk.
Thank you.
Yeah,
it changed my life. And I'm not a car salesman trying to sell you anything, but again, like I told you in the beginning, 11 years ago in October, I was making $9.50 an hour, going nowhere fast. 11 years into that, because of the fire sprinkler industry, I was able to buy my first home. I was able to have 2 children. I own my vehicles. If you would have told me 11 years ago, hey, in 11 years, you're going to be married, you're going to have 2 kids, you're going to have 0 debt, you're going to have a good credit score, and you're going to be comfortable, and you're going to have a retirement plan and insurance, and your life is going to be on the right track, I would have laughed in your face. And because of fire sprinklers, it absolutely changed my life. And so if I can spread the word and help 5 other people get into the same apprenticeship that changed my life, then my work is not done, but it's definitely made a path for somebody else.
Ah, damn. That just brought tears to my eyes. Jesus. That you're spot on. You're spot on. You're that's what this podcast is about. That's what this podcast is about. That's why we do what we do here. And that's why I teach. I do the same. I feel you. I feel you. I'm super, super stoked we got together tonight. And we kind of had to shuffle things because things got all messed up.
We figured it out.
So how long you been married?
10 years. Oh, 8 years.
8 years.
Sorry.
Awesome.
Been together 10 and we've been married 8.
Super happy. Everything's going
super
good.
happy. I have probably the best partner that I could imagine.
What career did she have to walk away from?
So we actually met I was a young dumb apprentice, and I donated plasma because I needed money.
Nice, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I needed money to supplement. I wasn't making a livable wage yet. You know what I mean?
I get it.
Because making more money, you spend more money, right?
Yep,
and so at that time, I was just donating plasma for side money, and she was my favorite phlebotomist.
Nice.
Yep. And we became friends, and one thing led to another, and we had a really long, good friendship, and then her life status changed, and my life status changed, and one thing led to another. But yeah, my partner is, my wife is my best friend and my biggest advocate.
I love that. That makes me really happy.
When the instructor position came out, we got a letter in the mail, and I kind of like hemmed and hawed, and I was really insecure about it. I'd only been journeyed out for 2 years. I journeyed out in 2018, and that instructor position became in 2020. I'm like, I don't know enough to teach anybody. And she was like, doesn't matter. Go for it.
Yeah.
Worst that they can say is no, right?
Right.
I'm like, yeah.
I could see her. I don't even know her. I can see her in you. You're like, worst she can say is no.
Yeah. You know?
You can just hear her
she's like,
slapping you around.
Throw your name in the hat. What's the worst that can happen? I'm
Yeah.
like, well, all right. And then I got it. And then I'm looking at her like, now what am I supposed to do? And she's like, now you're going to figure it out. Just like you always do. You just grab it by the horns and go. But we were
awesome.
in COVID.
Oh,
and so I had to learn how to teach.
Yeah.
I literally got a computer sent in the mail, some curriculum, and said, there you go. Teach over Zoom.
Were you using Zoom? But do you guys use Moodle at all? Have you been exposed to that?
No, haven't. No Moodle. We're back in person now, but luckily my instructor, who I went through, was now my coworker, and so we co-taught online, and he kind of just held my hand and babied me until we got into in person again. But yeah, it was.
I fought to get back in person. I taught over when COVID's first hit. I taught a summer school session, which we hardly ever do. In online. And then we wound up teaching online that year. And when they said, okay, you can come back, but we have to, you have all these protocols. Me and a guy who subsequently passed away, were clamoring to get back in the classroom.
Yeah.
We were like, whoa, rip the doors off. We'll go in. We didn't care.
Yeah.
And none of us got COVID, which was bizarre. I still, through all that bat squeeze, I never got it.
I have not either.
And then picked it up from some other source, like just out of the blue.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I got it. I mean, I finally got this, and I'm totally vaxxed. I had all the freaking shots.
I haven't had it yet.
Oh my God, it's nowadays, it doesn't seem to be nearly as bad. And it wasn't the version I got was like the watered down version. And I have had those shots. The shots were, I had like the Moderna. Well, if you were in the Army, since you never deployed, they may not have given you. Did they give you yellow fever?
I don't remember what they gave me, but when I went through intake, when they bring you in and they line you up and they give you every shot you can imagine, and you feel like a pincushion at the end of the day. That was the sickest I have ever been. I remember just it was terrible.
But you didn't get sick for 2 years after either.
I rarely get sick, and people laugh at me, but I'm like, I don't know what they gave me in the military, but ever since then, like not even kidding you, a couple weeks ago, my entire family had pink eye. Mm-hmm. My wife got it. The 6-year-old had it. The 2.5-year-old had it. I mean, I washed my hands and made sure I wasn't crazy.
Yeah.
I still didn't get it. They all get sick. They all get the flu. They all get.
You're like a superwoman after the Army.
And it's so weird. And it is so weird. During COVID, everyone was sick during COVID. I was around, the barber cut my hair the day before COVID popped off. He had COVID. It is the weirdest thing.
Good. Well, you know what? Well, knock on wood again. That's the way. My wife and I got it from, I forget how we figured it out, but it wasn't, thank God it wasn't in the world. It was that later version, but oh my God. But it's teaching to me in person. I can see the eyes, I can see the engagement. If I'm telling stories, because I have the book I have to teach from, but then it's the stories and that's the experiences. And, this is what I want you to be, pay attention to. This is the real stuff. The real stuff is not necessarily what the book is saying. It's how are you going to apply this in real life? Matter of fact, Tyler was one of my students. Gage was one of my students. Both the guys that run this podcast with me were both my students. So was his brother.
That's funny.
And he was my apprentice. So for a while. And cousin. And they've worked for me because I was managing at a place before. So it's it is a small community. It doesn't do good to poke people in the eye. It turns out they remember you. So don't do that. Well, gosh, I'm super happy you came in today. This has just been awesome.
It was a great time.
Please come back.
Absolutely.
And if you need to get the word out, consider this a way of doing that. So if you need a message put out, contact him, contact Tyler, contact Gage, contact me, and we'll throw the word out here for you, because this is super important to me.
It is. Fostering the next generation to build America is super important. We need people. Everyone's retiring. And that's the thing that I wanted to stress too, is you don't just have to be a construction worker in the field. If you want to go places, if you want to, 11 years, I was an apprentice for 5, was a journeyman for 2, was a foreman for the other amount of time. Mm-hmm. And now I'm out of the field. Now I don't have to go and pick up a wrench every single day and get in a lift and freeze my butt off in the cold. The sky is the limit. And it doesn't matter what trade. Every trade's going to need a new business agent. Every trade's going to need an organizer. Every trade's going to need instructors. Every trade's going to need business managers. There's leadership roles. There's educator roles. If you don't want to do that, then do your time and work your butt off. Be the hardest worker in the room and make sure that you secure that spot, because all of those spots are changing. You know, and that's another message is, well, I don't want to be a construction worker. Put your time in, get your college credits, and the sky is the limit.
Yeah. And go move up.
The sky is the limit. Yeah.
Well, let's end on that note. Beautiful. That was beautiful. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Half Watt Podcast. We always want to hear from you, and we encourage you to email us at halfwattpod@gmail.com with questions or even your own stories. Funny, crazy, or praiseworthy, we want to hear it all. You can follow us on Instagram at halfwattpod to stay up to date on our feed. And be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And share us with a friend, the best way to help us grow. The Half Watt Podcast is a production of Now Hear This Studios.